The office smelled faintly of coffee and rain. Ethan's assistant, Grace, entered quietly, holding a file. Her steps were soft, hesitant. She knew the storm brewing inside him wasn't just outside the glass. "Sir," she said, voice cautious. "The board meeting's in 10. Investors are waiting." Ethan didn't turn. "Cancel it." Grace blinked. "So?" He finally faced her, eyes sharp but weary. "You heard me. Cancel everything today." Grace nodded slowly, leaving the file on his desk. When the door clicked shut, Ethan exhaled, shoulders sagging. On the desk lay a photograph, a woman smiling beside him, her hand on his chest. Lily. The name alone ached like salt in an open wound. He picked up the frame, tracing the edge with his thumb. "You had me fooled," he whispered bitterly. Just 3 months ago, Lily had been his everything, the light in his ruthless life. She'd loved him when the world feared him. Also, he believed, until he discovered she'd been using him, feeding company secrets to his rival. The betrayal had broken something deeper than pride, something he didn't even know he still had. The intercom crackled. "Sir, there are 2 children in the lobby asking to see you." He frowned. "Children?" "Yes, a boy and a girl. Said it's urgent." He was about to refuse, but something in Grace's tone, confusion mixed with warmth, made him pause. "Send them up," he muttered. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and 2 small figures stepped out, a boy no older than 8, holding his sister's hand. Her pink raincoat dripped on the marble floor. "Mr. Cole," the boy asked, voice trembling but polite. We found this outside." He held up a leather wallet, Ethan's. Ethan blinked. He hadn't even noticed it was missing. "Where did you?" "By the coffee shop downstairs," the boy said quickly. "We were waiting for our mom, and we thought maybe it's yours." Ethan took the wallet slowly. "You could have kept it," he said. "It's expensive." The boy shook his head. "Mom says we don't keep things that aren't ours." His sister chimed in, "Even if they're shiny." Something cracked inside Ethan's chest. Not quite pain, not yet warmth, but something. "Thank you," he murmured. "What's your name?" "Ryan," the boy said proudly. "And this is Ava." Ava smiled shyly. "You look sad," she said softly. The words hit him harder than he expected. No one ever said that to him. Not employees. Not investors. Not even Lily. He tried to smile. "Just a long day." Ava nodded. "It's okay. Sad days end too." Grace watched from the corner, eyes wide. She hadn't seen Ethan this gentle in years. "Do your parents work here?" Ethan asked. Ryan looked down. "No. Mom's not feeling well. We just came to drop your wallet before we go to the hospital." Ethan felt something twist inside him. He wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small. "Wait," he said finally. "Do you need a ride?" Ryan shook his head. "No, sir. We'll walk." He watched them leave, 2 small figures disappearing into the storm. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the silence around him wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. He turned toward the window again. The city lights blurred through the rain, and his reflection didn't look quite so heartless anymore. As he stood there, the faintest thought whispered in his mind. Maybe kindness hadn't died after all. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The image of those 2 small figures, drenched, brave, and honest, replayed in his mind like an echo that refused to fade. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ava's little face saying, "Sad days end too." He'd built a world where no one dared speak to him like that, yet her words cut deeper than any corporate betrayal ever had. By morning, he was already restless. The city was quieter after the storm, but something in him was louder, a strange, persistent hum of curiosity and guilt. "Grace," he said as soon as he walked into the office, "find out which hospital they went to." Grace blinked. "The kids from yesterday?" "Yes." She hesitated. "Sir, may I ask why?" He looked at her, then away. "Just find out." An hour later, Grace returned with an address scribbled on a sticky note. "St. Helena's Children's Hospital," she said softly. Ethan took the note and stared at it for a moment. He could almost hear his own conscience mocking him. You don't do this. You don't care. But he did. Against every rule he'd written for himself, he did. By noon, he was standing in a white hallway that smelled of disinfectant and faint hope. Nurses walked past with soft smiles. Parents whispered prayers. And somewhere down the hall, a child's laughter broke the sterile quiet. He felt out of place, a man of business in a world built on emotion. At the reception, a nurse looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a woman, mother of Ryan and Ava." The nurse smiled sadly. "You must be Mr. Cole. The kids mentioned you." His brows lifted. "They did." She nodded. "They said you were nice. Their mom's just down the hall, room 204. "Thank you." He found the room easily. The door was slightly open, and through it, he saw Ryan sitting beside a hospital bed, reading from a children's book. Ava was asleep in a chair, clutching a stuffed bear. Their mother, pale, frail, but beautiful in a quiet way, watched them with soft eyes. Ethan hesitated before knocking. Ryan looked up, eyes lighting up. "Mr. Cole." The woman turned her head slowly. Confusion flickered in her tired gaze. "You're—" "Ethan," he said gently, "your kids returned my wallet yesterday. I wanted to thank you in person." She smiled faintly. "They told me. You didn't have to come all the way here." He shrugged, stepping closer. "They insisted I must have been sad." That made her laugh, weak but real. Ava says that about everyone. For a moment, the tension melted. Ethan stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, unsure why he'd come but certain he couldn't just leave. "I brought something," he said finally. From his pocket, he pulled out 2 small boxes, pastries from a cafe downstairs. "I figured they liked something sweet." Ryan's face lit up. Ava stirred awake at the smell of chocolate. "Is it okay?" Ethan asked their mother. "Of course," she said softly. "You didn't have to, but thank you." Ethan nodded. "How are you feeling?" Her smile faltered. "I'm fine. Just some treatments. It's been hard since—" She stopped herself. He could see the exhaustion behind her eyes, the kind that comes from carrying too much for too long. A nurse entered briefly, adjusting in full line. Ethan stepped aside, watching the quiet rhythm of care and resilience in that small room. He thought of Lily again, of betrayal, of how easily people left when love became inconvenient. Yet here was a woman, broken in body but fierce in spirit, still trying to smile for her kids. When he finally left the hospital, the sky was turning gold. The city below shimmered with life, but for the first time, Ethan saw it differently, not as an empire to control, but as a world full of stories he'd never noticed. He didn't know it yet, but something inside him had begun to thaw. That night, he opened his laptop and typed an email to Grace. Find out how to sponsor the treatment of a patient at St. Helena's. Anonymous contribution. He hovered for a moment, then hit send. The rain had stopped, but inside Ethan Cole's heart, a different kind of storm was finally breaking, one made of remorse, gratitude, and a faint shimmer of hope. The following week, Ethan visited the hospital again, this time without telling anyone. No cameras, no headlines, no assistants. Just him. He brought a few Storybix, a basket of fruit, and that awkward stiffness of a man who'd forgotten how to be gentle. When he walked into room 204, Ryan and Ava greeted him like he was family. Their mother, whose name he finally learned was Clara, smiled through her frailty. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "you didn't have to come back." "Ethan," he corrected, setting the books on the table. "And maybe I did." Clara tilted her head, curiosity glinting in her tired eyes. "Why?" He hesitated before replying. "Because your kids remind me of something I lost a long time ago, something I didn't even realize was gone." Ava giggled. "Your smile." He chuckled quietly. "Maybe that too." The room filled with laughter, the kind that heals without anyone noticing. Ryan showed him a drawing he'd made, a big office building with stick figures holding hands outside it. "That's you," he explained, pointing at a tall stick figure with a tie. "And that's us. You're not alone anymore." Ethan stared at the paper for a long moment, his throat tightening. He'd spent years being surrounded by people, employees, investors, admirers, and yet none of them had ever drawn him with a smile. He looked at Clara. "He's talented." She nodded proudly. "They both are. Art and kindness, it's what we live by." He wanted to ask more, to know how she managed to stay so calm despite her illness, but a nurse came in with test results. The quiet warmth in the room shifted. Ethan watched Clara's face pale slightly as she scanned the paper. "Everything okay?" he asked. She nodded too quickly. "Yes, just routine results." But her trembling fingers told another story. Later, when the children were distracted, Ethan stepped outside to find the nurse. "How bad is it?" The nurse hesitated. "It's advanced. She's been refusing some treatments because of the cost. She doesn't want to leave her kids in debt." Ethan's jaw tightened. That same ache returned, sharp and helpless. "Is there anything that can be done?" "There's," the nurse said, "but she won't agree unless someone convinces her she's worth saving." He stared down the hallway for a long moment. His world had once revolved around deals and profits. Now, he couldn't stop thinking about a woman too kind to fight for herself. When he re-entered the room, Clara was humming softly, stroking Ava's hair as she slept. The sunlight from the window framed her like something out of a dream, fragile yet glowing. He sat down beside her. "Clara," he said quietly, "what if someone wanted to help? Would you let them?" She looked at him with that same weary smile. "You already help more than you know. The kids needed hope. You gave them that. But what about you?" She laughed gently. "Mothers don't think about themselves, Mr. Cole. We just pray our children see another sunrise." Her words landed deep, deeper than she knew. Ethan looked at her hands, frail yet steady, and felt shame for every day he'd spent chasing numbers instead of meaning. He wanted to tell her about the anonymous donation, but he couldn't. Not yet. He didn't want gratitude. He wanted her to live. When visiting hours ended, Ryan hugged him around the waist. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Ethan smiled softly. "If you want me to." "Promise." Ava whispered. "I promise." He walked out of the hospital into the fading evening light, unaware that this small promise would change everything. That night, he sat by the window in his penthouse, the city light stretching endlessly below. For the first time in years, he opened a blank document not for a business plan, but for a letter to himself. He typed slowly, carefully. "You became rich by taking. Maybe it's time to become human by giving." He leaned back, exhaling a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Outside, the city was quiet, but for once, Ethan didn't feel alone in it. He thought of Clara's tired smile, the children's laughter, and something inside him, the cold, silent part, began to stir with warmth he couldn't name yet. The next morning came with a soft drizzle, the kind that painted the city in silver hues. Ethan woke earlier than usual, his mind already on the hospital. He wasn't sure when that place had begun to matter, when those kids had started to feel like something more than strangers, but the thought of them brought a quiet warmth he didn't want to lose. When he arrived, Ryan was waiting by the reception, holding a paper cup of hot chocolate. "This is for you," he said proudly. "We saved up and bought it from the vending machine." Ethan took it carefully, the warmth seeping into his palms. "Thank you, Ryan. That means more than you know." Ava ran up, clutching another drawing. This time, a heart surrounded by stick figures. "That's you, Mommy, and us," she explained. "You're smiling again." Ethan smiled too. "You really think I can smile like that?" Ava nodded firmly. "You already are." Inside the room, Clara was sitting up, her face a little brighter despite the tubes that surrounded her. "Mr. Cole," she greeted warmly, "I didn't expect you so soon." "Ethan," he reminded her gently, "and I thought I'd bring some lunch." He lifted a small takeout bag from a local restaurant, homemade soup, rolls, and juice boxes for kids. Clara's eyes softened. "You shouldn't keep doing this." "I want to," he said simply. "Let me." For a while, they talked about small things, books, favorite songs, silly office stories. He found himself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in months. The walls that had once made him feel trapped now seemed like a sanctuary. But when a doctor entered mid-conversation, the laughter faded. Clara's smile wavered as the doctor glanced at Ethan, clearly recognizing him. "Mr. Cole," he said politely, "may I speak with you outside?" Ethan followed, heart sinking. The hallway felt colder now. "Is it worse?" he asked quietly. The doctor hesitated. "We need to begin treatment immediately. It's her only chance, but she's refusing to sign. She doesn't want to burden anyone." Ethan clenched his fists. "What if I covered it?" The doctor looked surprised. "You'd do that?" "Money isn't the problem," Ethan said, his voice low but steady. "Convincing her might be." The doctor nodded slowly. "If she hears it from someone she trusts, maybe." When Ethan returned to the room, Clara was tucking Ava's blanket, her eyes distant. He sat beside her, silent for a moment, searching for the right words. "Clara," he began softly, "I spoke with your doctor." She tensed. "You shouldn't have." "I should have," he interrupted gently. "You can fight this. There's still time." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I've already cost too much. The treatments, the medicine. My kids deserve freedom, not debt." Ethan leaned forward. "What about you? Don't they deserve you?" Her lips trembled. "They do, but I can't ask anyone for more." He hesitated, then said quietly, "You're not asking. I'm offering." She blinked, eyes glistening. "Why? You don't even know us." He exhaled slowly. "Because I spent half my life thinking feelings were a weakness. But your kids, they reminded me that love isn't weakness at all. It's the only thing that makes us human." Tears filled her eyes. She turned away, covering her face. "Ethan, I can't accept." "Yes, you can," he said, voice firm but kind. "You accepted kindness when you raised them to be good. You accepted grace when you smiled through pain. Let someone return it." For a long moment, there was only the sound of Ava's quiet breathing and the soft beeping of the monitor. Then, slowly, Clara nodded. "All right," she whispered, "but only if it's anonymous." He smiled faintly. "It already is." Her tears broke into laughter. "You really are impossible." "Maybe," he said softly, "but maybe it's time I learned to be." The doctor began her treatment that evening. Ethan stayed late, sitting quietly near the window as the kids slept beside their mother. The city lights reflected off the hospital glass, and for the first time, Ethan didn't see power. He saw purpose. As he left, Clara's voice followed him, soft but steady. "Thank you, Ethan, for believing I was worth saving." He paused at the doorway, his heart trembling with something almost like peace. "You were never the one who needed convincing," he said. "I was." If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Days turned into weeks. St. Helena's no longer felt like a hospital to Ethan. It felt like a second home. Every evening, after his meetings ended, he'd stop by, sometimes with a bouquet, sometimes with storybooks, sometimes with nothing but silence and presence. Clara's color had begun to return. The treatment was working, slowly, painfully, but it was working. The kids' laughter filled the sterile halls, chasing away the sound of machines. Even the nurses began smiling more when Ethan arrived. One night, as he watched Ryan and Ava color on the floor, Clara looked at him thoughtfully. "You've changed," she said softly. He glanced at her. "How so?" "You don't look like a man trying to fix things anymore. You look like someone who's learning to feel them." He smiled faintly. "Maybe both." She nodded. "It suits you." They sat in comfortable quiet. The hum of fluorescent lights mixed with the soft rain outside. For once, Ethan didn't feel the urge to check his phone, answer emails, or control anything. Instead, he found himself remembering Lily, her betrayal, the bitterness that followed, the years he'd wasted shutting everyone out. For so long, he thought love was just another transaction. But this was different. When visiting hours ended, Ava tugged at his sleeve. "Can we come to your office one day?" He blinked. "Why would you want to do that?" Ryan grinned. "So we can see where the mean boss works." Ethan laughed for real this time. "Deal. But I warn you, it's very boring." Ava giggled. We'll make it fun. And somehow he believed her. The following Monday, he surprised everyone at the office when he arrived with the two children and their mother. Grace nearly dropped her clipboard. So, Ethan smiled slightly. Team, meet my guests. They'll be running the place today. The employees exchanged stunned glances, then smiled as Ava waved enthusiastically. Ryan wandered toward the glass window, awestruck by the view. It's like being on top of the world, he whispered. Clara stood back, nervous but glowing. You didn't have to do this. I wanted them to see where kindness led me, he said quietly. Maybe it'll remind me, too. The children spent the morning exploring. Ethan let them sit in his chair, doodle on notepads, even press the intercom button, which caused minor chaos in accounting. For once, the office was filled with laughter instead of tension. Even Grace found herself laughing when Ava handed her a drawing of Miss Grace the hero. When lunchtime came, Ethan gathered everyone in the break room, something he had never done. Before we eat, he said, I want to tell you all something. For years, I thought success meant never needing anyone. But I was wrong. These two little teachers reminded me that even the strongest people break, and it's okay to be human. The room was silent. Some smiled. Some looked away, emotional. Clara stood beside him, eyes glistening. You've done more good than you realize, she whispered. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the world faded. The noise, the people, the city beyond the glass, none of it mattered. Only her gentle gaze did. Later, as the kids napped on the couch in his office, Clara stood by the window. You know, she said quietly, I used to think life was cruel, that it only took. But lately, I've started believing it gives back too, just in different forms. Ethan joined her, watching the sun melt into the skyline. You believe that now? I do, she said, because somehow, even in my weakest moment, kindness found me. He turned to her, his voice low. Maybe it found us both. They stood in silence, not the cold kind he once knew, but the kind that heals. Outside, the clouds parted, and sunlight spilled across the city like forgiveness. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, letting it touch his face. Somewhere deep inside, he realized this was what peace felt like. Not power, not wealth, just quiet understanding that even the hardest hearts could soften. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Ethan, Clara, and the kids only deepened. St. Helena's became less of a hospital and more like a bridge between broken lives, hers and his. The treatments were working. Clara was getting stronger. But something else was changing too, something inside Ethan. He was different at work now. His employees whispered about it. The CEO who once barked orders now asked people how they were doing, who smiled during meetings, who took breaks just to breathe. Profits still grew, but this time, so did hearts. And yet, one night, as he drove home under silver moon, his thoughts wandered back to Lily. He'd avoided thinking about her for months, but now her name crept in like a ghost. He realized, for the first time, that he didn't hate her anymore. The anger had burned out, leaving only the faint ache of memory. The next day, fate tested that newfound peace. Ethan was in his office when Grace stepped in hesitantly. So, there's someone here to see you. He looked up from his paperwork. Who? Grace's voice softened. Lily. The name hung in the air like thunder. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly. Send her in. When Lily entered, it was as if time folded. She looked smaller somehow, not the confident, glittering woman he remembered. Her eyes were tired, her voice careful. Ethan, I know I'm the last person you want to see. You're not wrong, he said evenly. She took a trembling breath. I didn't come for forgiveness. I came because I wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly sorry. He studied her quietly. Sorry for betraying me? Or sorry it failed? She looked down. Both! Silence filled the room. The city roared faintly beneath them. Cars, horns, life moving on. For once, Ethan didn't feel that urge to retaliate. Instead, he felt free. Lily, he said finally, his voice calm, you broke something in me, but someone else helped me fix it. She blinked, tears spilling. You mean Clara? He nodded. Huh. And her children. They showed me that not everyone takes. Some people give without expecting anything back. Lily's lips trembled. I'm happy for you, Ethan. You deserve peace. He studied her for a long moment, then extended a hand. I forgive you. She froze. You, what? I forgive you, he repeated. Not because you deserve it, but because I do. I can't move forward while carrying hate. Lily covered her mouth as tears fell freely. You're not the same man I left. He smiled faintly. That's the point. When she left, Ethan stood by the window, feeling lighter than he had in years. The city no longer looked like a battlefield. It looked like home. Later that night, he visited Clara again. She noticed the peace in his face before he even spoke. You look different, she said softly. I let go of something heavy today, he replied. She smiled knowingly. Forgiveness. He nodded. It's strange. I thought it was weakness, but it feels like strength. Because it is, she said. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to stop bleeding. Ethan exhaled deeply, her words sinking in. You always know what to say. Only because I've had to live it, Clara said gently. They sat together in silence, the kind that didn't need words. Ava's laughter echoed down the hallway as Ryan chased her with a paper airplane. Life, messy, fragile, and beautiful, surrounded them again. And in that moment, Ethan realized he wasn't just healing himself. He was learning how to live again. Spring arrived with a softness that felt almost symbolic. The city skyline gleamed brighter, the air smelled cleaner, and Ethan Cole, the man once known for his ruthless ambition, began smiling like someone who had finally found a reason to breathe. Clara was recovering steadily now. Her doctors called it a miracle, but Ethan knew it wasn't magic. It was willpower, faith, and the kind of love that refused to die quietly. He'd visit her at home now instead of the hospital. Her small apartment was modest but warm, filled with sunlight and laughter. There were plants on the balcony, family photos taped to the fridge, and the faint smell of cinnamon that never seemed to leave. One evening, as the kids played on the floor with crayons and paper, Clara handed Ethan a cup of tea. You know, she said, sitting across from him, I don't think I ever thanked you properly. He smiled. You thank me every time you smiled. She shook her head. No, Ethan, you didn't just help me survive. You helped me believe again, in people, in goodness, in tomorrow. Her eyes glistened, and for a brief moment, neither of them spoke. He leaned back slightly. Funny, that's what you did for me. Outside, a golden sunset spilled through the curtains, bathing the room in warmth. Ava giggled as Ryan tried to draw Ethan's serious CEO face, which looked more like a grumpy potato. They all laughed until Clara's soft coughing broke the moment. Ethan's smile faded instantly, concern flashing across his face. You okay? She nodded, covering her mouth with a tissue. Just a little tired. But when she lowered her hand, there was a small spot of red. Ethan froze. Clara. She quickly folded the tissue away. It's nothing. The doctor said small side effects can happen. Still, his chest tightened. He'd seen her get better. He wouldn't watch her fade again. The next day, he called her doctor privately. The news was cautious, but not hopeless. There's a chance of relapse, the doctor explained. But she's strong. With the right care, she can beat it again. Ethan thanked him and hung up, gripping the phone until his knuckles whitened. He wasn't angry this time, just scared. Later that week, he brought Clara and the kids to a park just outside the city. It was one of those perfect spring days, blue skies, cherry blossoms drifting like pink snow. Ryan and Ava ran ahead, chasing bubbles, their laughter echoing through the air. Ethan and Clara walked behind, their hands brushing occasionally. You ever think about what comes next? She asked softly. He glanced at her. What do you mean? After all this, she said, motioning to the park, the children, the world. When the pain fades and life feels normal again, what then? He thought for a moment. Then we start over, he said, not as who we were, but who we became. She smiled faintly. That's beautiful. He looked at her with quiet intensity. So are you. For a moment, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Fragile, tentative, but real. When they returned to the bench, Ava climbed into Ethan's lap. You should marry Mommy, she said suddenly. Ethan choked on a laugh. Oh, really? Ryan nodded enthusiastically. Then you'd be our dad for real. Clara blushed, shaking her head. Kids, stop teasing Mr. Cole. But Ethan didn't laugh it off completely. He looked at Clara, really looked, and the idea didn't feel absurd at all. It felt right. That evening, as he drove them home, he couldn't shake Ava's words. You should marry Mommy. They replayed in his head like a melody he didn't know he needed. When they reached the apartment, Clara turned to him before getting out. Thank you, Ethan, for today. He smiled gently. Thank me by staying healthy. She nodded. I'm trying. He hesitated, then said softly, and, Clara, no matter what happens, you're not alone anymore. Her eyes filled again, but this time with something brighter than sadness. Faith. I know, she whispered. Neither are you. As the door closed behind her, Ethan sat in the car for a long while, staring up at the stars. The night was quiet, but his heart was louder than it had ever been. Not with pain, but with hope. Summer arrived quietly, warm and golden. The kind of summer that makes the air hum with peace. Clara's strength had returned fully now. The hospital visits became less frequent, and laughter once again filled her home. Ethan found himself there almost every evening, helping Ryan with homework or letting Ava braid his hair terribly while Clara watched from the couch, smiling. He didn't know when her home became home for him too. It just happened. The cold penthouse he once called success now felt like a stranger's cage. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, they all gathered for dinner. Clara cooked her famous soup, and the kids told stories that went nowhere but made everyone laugh anyway. When the dishes were cleared and the laughter settled, Ethan reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table. Clara blinked. What's that? He smiled nervously. Something I should have done long ago, not because I feel I owe you anything, but because I can't imagine life without you. Her eyes widened as he opened the box. Inside wasn't a grand diamond, just a delicate silver ring, simple and sincere. Clara, he said softly, you and your kids didn't just save me. You rebuilt me. You showed me what love is supposed to look like. Quiet, patient, real. I don't want to go back to who I was before. So if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that kindness never goes to waste. For a long, trembling second, Clara said nothing. Her hand flew to her mouth, and tears slipped down her cheeks. Ryan and Ava gasped, eyes wide with delight. Ava whispered, Say yes, Mommy. Clara laughed through her tears. Yes, she said, voice shaking. 1,000 times, yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. The moment it did, something inside him, that frozen, guarded part, finally melted completely. Later, as the kids danced around the living room, he and Clara stood by the balcony, watching the city glow beneath the stars. Do you ever think, he murmured, how strange life is? I had everything once, and felt nothing. Now I have less, but it feels like the world. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. That's because love doesn't make you richer in things. It makes you richer in meaning. He nodded quietly, his hand finding hers. And meaning lasts longer than money ever could. Down below, the city shimmered, the same skyline he used to stare at through cold glass, now seen through the warmth of shared hearts. As Ryan and Ava giggled behind them, chasing bubbles through the living room, Ethan turned to Clara. You know, he said softly, those kids were right from the start. About what? They said sad days end too, he smiled. And I think mine finally did. She looked up at him with that soft glow in her eyes, the kind that felt like forgiveness, like dawn after a storm. He kissed her forehead gently. Thank you for teaching me what love actually means. And thank you, she whispered back, for proving that even the coldest hearts can find their way home. The camera of life seemed to pull back in that moment. The laughter, the light, the faint hum of the city, capturing a man who once stood alone in power, now surrounded by the quiet, unstoppable strength of love. And as the night settled, the echoes of their laughter rose toward the stars, a reminder that sometimes the greatest stories aren't about falling, but about learning how to stand again.